Hey, you don't want to miss out on this video series because we're going to talk about the 10 commandments of the single plane swing.
So there's no better feeling knowing that when you wake up in the morning to go play golf, so that you're going to play well. There's no better feeling of hitting good golf shots down the fairway. Years ago, I was frustrated because I lost that. I was confused, I was frustrated, and then I met Mo Norman and learned the single plane swing. And so now I wake up every day and I know I'm going to hit it well, I know I'm going to play well, I know I'm going to have fun. So my mission today is to help as many people as possible wake up every day feeling good that they're going to go out there and play great because of the single plane swing.
Hey, welcome back to the final 4 commandments of the 10 commandments of the single plane swing. This commandment is thy must keep the lead knee flexed and the trail foot down through impact and past impact. And let me explain this one. So one of the most important factors of the single plane swing, and it's not just a single plane swing, but all golf swings, is controlling the pelvis. So controlling the pelvis does what? Well, this is the spine connects through the sacrum right here, connects to the pelvis. And what happens is if you lose control of the pelvis in whatever way, everything above this gets affected. So what happens is my arms get affected, my hands get affected, my body gets affected, and then I can't get the club to impact correctly. So I must control this part of my body. Well, what controls this part of your body is everything below it. So including the legs, the knees, the ankles, and the feet. So let's go into some detail about this because what we teach in the single plane swing is such a critical factor to this. Number one is, I see this happen way too often, is people are getting their feet too straight out like this. Now, this creates an entirely different motion where the body has to straighten up. Those of you who are experiencing back pain may really relate to this commandment because the feet have to be in the proper position to control the ankles. The ankles then can control what the legs do. So what I want to see is the trail foot have a slight rotation to it, not straight out, slight rotation. And the lead foot has more of a rotation. So you get, both feet are rotated a little bit. This one is more than this one. And this allows you to work on the inside of the legs, where this is always more on the outside of the legs. So now I'm on the inside of the legs working internally here. Very important part of rotational motion. But what happens is, it then helps me control my pelvis. Now, speaking of controlling the pelvis, what happens is when I go back, I'm able to brace against this leg. Notice the foot is on the ground. I'm working towards the inner part of the foot and the heel. As I transition down, notice my foot is rotated and I go into a braced lead leg. See how that lead leg is braced? I don't want flexed, I want braced, so the leg is bent. And then as I'm coming down, I'm rotating, so I'm not losing rotation of the pelvis, not losing this rotation, but notice, internally rotating this inside of this leg. That's like I'm turning my foot this way, but the foot's on the ground, so I can't really turn the foot. So I get this internal motion of the inside of the leg against this lead leg. And what's happening is that motion right here, this internal rotation against this flexed knee, which allows my pelvis to rotate, is controlling right here. It's controlling this part of my back. So when I get control here, when I have control here, I then have control here, right? So this is such an important part when you come down, and I want to see your feet down, both feet down, all the way to here, and then you can lift the foot up. It's not that I want it down even here, even though some people do it that way. I want it down through here, and then you can stand up and watch the shot. So let me demonstrate. So you see what happened there. Through impact, stays down, then it comes up. That's controlling the lower body. That's a very important commandment. The next commandment is thy must control your bends and side bends. Well, what does that mean? Okay. So in the body we have this bend, that's forward bend, and we have a side bend, all right? Forward bend and side bend. So the bends of the body affect what? And we're going to talk about this in the next commandment, but the bends of the body are very important. Now we control this, the lower part of the upper body bends with what we just talked about, the legs and the feet and how the pelvis works. Now if we have side bend, all good players impact with this ideal side bend. And there's actually a measurable amount here of forward bend and side bend and rotation of where we get to at impact. If we don't control our ability to get to this impact position with the proper forward bend and side bend, we can't square the face. So again, bends and side bends, here's what they're doing. I'm gonna put this club down for a second. When we have the proper side bend, forward bend, proper side bend, forward bend, then move our lower body like we just talked about, we rotate, we have side bend and rotation as we go forward bend. It helps us control the rotation, because now what happens is this arm can then square. If we lose our bend, look at this arm, it can rotate this way too much. If we get too much bend, it rotates this way. So again, forward and side bend allow us to get the club face square and produce speed as well with this trail arm. So that's the most important commandment here, is controlling and having the proper bend and side bends to square the club face. Now, the next commandment is that we must understand how the body has a braking system. I call it a braking system, and it's related to the two things I just talked about. If I control the pelvis with my lower body, so I'm controlling this part of my body with my feet, my ankles, and the way I use my lower body, and I control the bends and the side bends, right? So I have the proper bends and side bends, I now am able to produce what we call sequence. Sequence is this. If I'm going to accelerate one part of the body, so obviously we want to accelerate the club, but we can't accelerate the club if we don't accelerate the hands. How do we accelerate the hands? We have to accelerate the arms, and then the shoulders, the torso, and see how I'm working that backwards. So if I want to make this club go fast, notice when I did that, I've got to stop. I got to stop some parts and accelerate the next part. Well, think of this sequence. The lower body is moving first. This is moving first. This is moving second. This is moving third, fourth, and then club fifth. So we get this sequence of events, right? Pelvis, torso, arms, hands, club, right? That's the sequence. All right, well, think about this. Pelvis, torso, arms, hands, club. There's the sequence of events. That's how it accelerates itself out. Well, if the pelvis is out of position, the torso is going to be out of position. It can't go fast. Then the arms can't go fast. Then the hands can't go fast. Then the club can't go fast. So if I don't get it all in this order, then I don't get sequence and speed. Those of you who want more speed, you got to listen to this. Now, let's go back a step. If I'm going to produce speed with these body parts, I have to stabilize part of them, half of them, to accelerate the other half. For example, I can't accelerate this side of the pelvis if this isn't stopped. I can't accelerate this side of the body if this isn't stopped, right? Okay, follow me on this. So now, what did I just tell you in the last two commandments? I said lower body, lead knee flex, trail foot down. What I'm doing here is I'm stopping this to accelerate this. But because that foot's down, it creates a limit, so when I'm in my side bends, it can stop this so that this can accelerate. See what I just did? By putting my body in the positions that I mentioned throughout these commandments, the side bends create a limitation. I call it's a braking system. The body has to stop. Just like this knee flex, this has to stop. So now what happens, because of the positions I'm in, knee bent, foot down, bend and side bend, guess what? The last piece of the puzzle, arms, hands, club, accelerates. Was that really complicated or not? I don't think it's that complicated, because I'm not asking you to know any of this stuff. All I'm asking you to do is hit these positions. Again, part of the commandments here. So watch now. I'm going to do this swing in slow motion, and what you're going to see is me hit my positions, stabilize, and then accelerate the arms. But I'm just going to do this kind of 30%, and you're going to see the sequence here. See that sequence? So what you get is, you get stopping, stopping, acceleration. I'll do that in parts. That might be a better way to do it. Let me try it this way. I'll do it in kind of pieces here. I'm in the backswing. Stopping, stopping, acceleration. Now what happens in acceleration is, because I'm side bent, and you guys can experiment with this, in every one of my golf schools I have the students do this. You want to see how your body reaches its limits, right? You can do this really easily. The body has limits of motion, okay? Limits or range of motion. Some people call it range of motion, but it has limits. You want the body to reach its limits. Let me show you what I mean by that. If you were to put your feet in the correct position, flex your knee, towards your toe, stop this. Keep your foot down, go into a forward bend and side bend, and I want you to turn the pelvis. Just turn it. Turn it as much as you can. Make sure you're bent sideways and turn this. And you're gonna find there's an absolute limit to how much you can turn your pelvis. That's a great thing. If I'm bent and side bent, while my pelvis is here, go to this limitation of your, go to your torso only. Don't worry about your shoulders. And go to a torso limit. Okay, torso limit. Don't go into a stretch, just go into where it wants to stop. There's impact. And then what happens is, that's what the body's doing. As the arms lag, the body's reaching its limits, and then you accelerate the arm. See what happened? So it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 sequence, club being number 5. Now let's talk about the final commandment, which is kind of a summation of all this stuff, which is that don't blame this swing method. Now the reason I say that you don't blame the single plane swing, and actually the commandment is, thou must not blame the swing if you aren't getting great results, because you're probably doing it wrong. And I get this all the time. People say, well, the swing's not working for me. And there is absolutely no way, based on the science behind the swing, based on the simplest way to get to impact, based on the results that I've been able to get with thousands of golfers, that all you're doing is swinging a stick, a club, into a golf ball. If you're not able to get the results, something is missing. Follow the 10 commandments. You're missing a position, you're missing the proper address and grip, you're not hitting you're not sequencing correctly, you're not stabilizing with your, follow the commandments. Again, let me kind of brief you on this really quickly. One of the most, and I'll just kind of troubleshoot with you here just for a second. One of the most important parts of getting this right is exactly what we've talked about in all these commandments. You must hit the positions correctly. You must do it correctly. If you're not doing it correctly, you don't get the correct results. But that's not rocket science here. If you don't do it correctly, you will not get results. If you're losing distance, and I hear this a lot, you're doing it incorrectly. You're gripping incorrectly, you're not leveraging the club, you're not sequencing correctly, something. But this swing should not lose speed. If you're not able to make good contact, something's going on with your ability to get to impact. You're straightening your leg, you're coming off your trail foot. But here's the thing, and I'm gonna go back to the commandment, I believe it was commandment number 5. You must get feedback on your methodology. Are you able to measure? Are you doing it correctly? See, I've given you all the tools you need to go build your single plane swing. Now, how do you know you're gonna do it correctly? That's the question. How do you know? And the only way you're gonna know is if you go measure and get feedback, which is such an important part of this process. For me, I carry around tools in my bag that help me every once in a while. I don't do it every swing. Obviously, I have a really solid single plane swing, but what I do is I often will check things. Like yesterday, I took a few videos of my backswing. I want to see where the club is going. But just measuring all the time, I have these tools down. But what I want you to make sure you're doing is don't blame the swing for you not getting it right. It's you not doing it correctly. Just go back and follow the rules. And that's the 10 commandments of the single plane swing. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the 10 commandments of the single plane swing. Don't forget to click the bell icon for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video.